Hello, everyone. It's a real privilege, Barry. Thank you for this invitation, and a pleasure to be with you. Let me start maybe again, R&D forces shaping a new world order, being a little bit private and telling you my day yesterday. As you can notice with my accent, I'm from Europe. I woke up at 6 a.m. and not p.m. in Paris. Check, as you guys do, very likely, my iPhone immediately. That's what I do when I wake up. Made myself a nice espresso with an espresso machine. I did check on Waze how long it would take me to go to the airport, so I would manage my personal time at home. Order a Uber on my iPhone to go to the airport, and so on and so forth. The Uber that came was a Tesla, which is now rather common in Paris. On my way to the airport, I said, okay, 10-hour flight, I'm gonna work, I'm gonna sleep a little bit, I'm gonna upload a movie, so I choose what I watch. So I used my Surface, I uploaded a movie. I did chat with my daughter and my wife to tell them that everything was fine and I was boarding, and so on and so forth. I boarded on the Airbus, and I noticed that my team participated in 3D metal printing because many of the parts of the Airbus are now done with that kind of disruptive technology. But for us, it's kind of usual. I check my connected watch on the flight to manage my sleep time and my rest and so on and so forth. And finally, arrived yesterday very late, and I'm with you this morning in Bangalore. And you're telling yourself, and so what? Because you guys are all doing that. So what? The reason why I'm telling you that is that none of those technologies existed 10 years ago. None. Think about that. Many of those companies didn't exist, and most of them are well above 1 billion market cap of worth. And that's an illustration on the subject of this conference that has been chosen by Zinnov on this fantastic acceleration which we have never witnessed in human history. And we're getting used to that thing, and so what? But my God, that's really warp speed. So let me put some structure in what I want to share with you this morning. So as it was said in the introduction, my group employs 31,000 engineers. We work with 300 out of the 500 top group worldwide, and we focus just on R&D and engineering. That's what we do. That's what we do. So the 3 points I would like to touch with you is that I think what's driving this new world order is a battle of giants. I'm going to discuss that a little bit with you. 2, discussing with those groups and our clients, we see at Altran 6 tyrannies shaping the new world order. And when you compute all that, we're going to go into detail of that, we think there is one key conclusion. It's a call to participate and be a winner and not a victim of this new world order. It's a call for a new partnership model. So let me elaborate in the next 15, 20 minutes on the 3 subjects. Battle of giants first. What do we mean? First, with no doubt, R&D is ruling the planet. It is the most powerful line of growth spending across the companies. The spending in R&D is between 1,000 and 2,000 billion a year, and that's growing faster by any measure than the global economy and the GDP, as you can see on the left chart of this left side of this chart. More importantly, and that's a pivot, in reality, of course, startups and small companies participate in this global innovation, but what's driving this new world order are the top 500 or 1,000 companies, because they spend between 60 and 70% of this phenomenal amount of money that is being spent every year. They, of course, work with an ecosystem of startup and provider, but they are the ones driving that, and I'm going to elaborate on that. That's what you can see. More interesting, if you check on the list of the top 500 group, what's going on, you see that the lifespan for whoever was or is on this group was kind of 33 years, 20 years ago, and it's now moving to 15 years. So there is a churn, meaning people being displaced as top leaders in this global economy, and that's quite intriguing. If you take a look at that, left side of the chart, you can see that it's even on the top part of this ranking, on the top 10, between 2011 and 2017, 8 companies got in this group, displacing 8 companies that were in the top 10 worldwide. And if you check what's driving that, it's not only, but it is mostly the way they innovate. And not only the amount of money they're spending in R&D, but the way they spend it, and I'm going to elaborate on that. And that's not static, because as you can see, other people that are not yet on this list, like Tesla, are, to take this example, displacing. A few years ago, I was reading sarcastic or ironic comment on Tesla, saying, yeah, good, they innovate and so on, but at the end of the day, what's for? What's for? They now, and you can see that in 2-3 years, just they took the #1 position in the premium segment in the USA. Same story for Uber, so you can expect this churn to continue. Why do we conclude at Altran that it's battle of giants? Because check on the right side of the chart. I spent 23 years at IBM. For more than a decade, with $5 billion in R&D every year, IBM was a star in the top 3. And you now see giants. That's the reason why at Altran we call giants, spending between 15 and 10 billion, fighting to stay on this list and to understand how they can innovate, participate in the new world order, to stay on this leadership position. So that's what we mean by battle of giants, and the amount of money that each company, Volkswagen spending 15 billion a year in R&D, Google spending 14, and so on and so forth, that's defining battle of giants. Point 1. Point 2, when we discuss with the CEOs or the head of R&D of those companies, and we check what they're trying to cope with, we at Altran define what we call 6 tyrannies. And our conclusion, and their conclusion, when we speak with our clients, is that no one, even the strongest company, can cope with the 6 tyrannies alone at the same time. I'm going to spend 1 minute, no more, on each tyranny. First one, as you can see, time to market. Second one, digital disruption. Third one, breakthrough technology disrupting everything. Fourth tyranny, global or marginal. That's the world we're living in. Fifth tyranny, an obsession for those clients to get an advantage of separation and not only differentiation. And last, as you, of course, all know, draconian regulation, putting another burden on them. So let's take a sense of the magnitude of those tyrannies before I come to my conclusion. So I'm going to spend just 1 minute on each of them, giving or sharing few data points. First tyrannies, time to market obsession. You know the left side of the chart, it is the adoption rate. In few decades, the adoption rate has gone from several decades to get to 90% penetration on any new technology to just few years, and that's an acceleration. Not only the adoption rate from the client standpoint is accelerating significantly, but we see a larger product range being put on the market. You see this illustration with BMW, where they moved a few years ago, 8 years ago, from 18 products, cars, to match their segmentation, to now 36 to make sure they will stay on the top. And not only that, but that's the point of this chart, shorter lead time, where, example in the automotive to stay in this sector, the development time has gone from 51 months 2 decades ago to less than 2 years as of today, and very likely 1.5 years in the next 2 years. So it's a phenomenal acceleration, and you understand when you're enlarging the product range in such a time window reduction, the pressure for the client. 2, digital disruption. Most of you work in this environment, but this is very likely the most massive and powerful phenomenon that is taking place. A couple of measures here to illustrate again the power of this phenomenon. On the left side of the chart, you can see the value of software in the brand experience. And you see that even at the bottom of the quadrant, even in automotive, that is now more than 50%. So everything is becoming digital, and the software is eating the planet, which is, again, when you break down what it means to be a software company in product development, which is quite challenging. And from a market or business standpoint, you see, I'm staying on this automotive example, that while the market was addressable market inexistent a couple of years ago, the digital service market in automotive, what the car maker can address, is now bigger than the aftermarket, and that's going to continue to develop. So you see what we mean by new world order and the speed of development and the massive disruption, and think about that in this battle of giants, what clients have to do to cope with that disruption. Breakthrough technology, I could spend the morning, which I'm not going to do on that, but my God, internet over the light, organs 3D printed, and so on and so forth. So that's in all domains, vertical, everywhere. And again, same acceleration. It was the point of my introduction on my day yesterday. Global and marginal. So here, for whoever is working in India, most of you, I guess, that is a key point. We all know that. But anytime I'm using this chart with my clients, it's a shock, right? In blue, you see on the globe where those 500 top clients or 1,000 top clients and their ecosystem are spending their money, where they are and where they invest rationally and so on. And you see the massive epicenter of R&D investment on the West Coast, in Japan, East Coast US, and a bit in Europe. The issue is the following. Those are the pool of talents, scientists and engineers. So you, of course, understand that when we are telling clients, it's all about being global, otherwise you're going to be marginal. It's because it's obvious that you need to connect those clients and the pool of talents. That's what you guys are doing. I'm saying that for you, it's obvious. When I'm pitching that in Europe, they're still skeptical on that, believe it or not. And we're telling them that is going to happen. Those pool of talent are going to finally serve. We guarantee the clients wherever they are. And the work will shift wherever it can be based on, because the expertise exists. It's inevitable. That's the tyranny number 4. Tyranny number 5, it is my point on this advantage of separation. It's not enough to differentiate or innovate. Whenever I discuss with CEOs or head of R&D, their real obsession, after everything I said, is to find the right technology or business model or product range and so on that are going to provide them an advantage of separation from competition, even for a couple of years, even if the other big guys neutralize them later on, but they want this window where for 1, 2, 3, 4 years, they're going to surf and be able to get more clients, better margins, because they found something which is not only differentiating them a little bit, but separating them from competition. And that is incredibly difficult to do, and we'll come back to that in my conclusion. And last, draconian regulation. I'm not going to go into detail of this chart, but by any measure, this is another layer of burden. You see on the left side of the chart the number of regulation, new regulation every year in the US in the manufacturing sector. So that is accelerating incredibly fast. You see how stringent in the middle of the chart with this example on CO2 emission and how challenging it is for the car makers and the automotive players to reach that. And not only it is more regulation, more drastic, more stringent, but it's now done on the spotlight and social scrutiny, which is if you do not meet with that, something very bad is going to happen. I'm not going to elaborate on the Volkswagen example and the terrible disruption when you do not meet that kind of stuff that can happen with any company. So battle of giants, 6 tyrannies, and if I snapshot what we shared this morning before I come to my conclusion, it means if you are on this lucky list of the top 1,000 company, your to-do as the CEO or the head of R&D, or whoever for that, is I need to get an advantage of separation very fast in a world which is global, where I don't find the talent where I am, under stringent regulation, and I don't even know what are those regulations, in a world that is becoming digital. Software is eating my industry, with breakthrough technology that I don't even understand, that are popping up, and I don't even know what are the technologies that are going to be on the market in 1 year. That's a big to-do. And you will say, wow, and so what? But sadly, it's not for us the main issue for those clients and their ecosystem. So I'm going to move to my last point and then conclude. When we're discussing with our clients, and we've been working for them for now more than 3 decades, we think, and I'm going to simplify that this morning, that the big one single main issue there is this one. For years and years and years and years, most of the companies, including us, thought that because R&D was all about innovation and trying to get this advantage of differentiation, everything was core. In reality, it's absolutely not the case. What's core for our clients and Altran is what can drive an advantage of separation sooner or later. Otherwise, it is not core. However, in the R&D, what's non-core is most of the time mission critical. And this is the confusion that we have seen for decades. We were participating into that, collaborating with clients, thinking that everything was core, and allocating resources almost in a linear way between core and what we call non-core, which we call context activity. Again, get me right, context activity can, and most of the time, is mission critical. But that is not going to drive an advantage of separation. It is just a must-make to be good with your own clients. And why do I say that? I have no time this morning to elaborate on that. When we check what our clients are doing with their own R&D resources, most of the time, and because they follow the innovation cycle, they allocate most of their resources on the activity that is context. They do not re-extract their own resources to repurpose and refocus on the core, and they get trapped by a lack of talent and control and focus and investment on what's core, which is again driving this advantage of differentiation in the 6 tyrannies, what I was elaborating. So we think that the main difficulty for large clients and their ecosystem in this new world order is this subject. It is this analysis on what's core exactly in my company. How should I, if I'm the client, behave so that I can put my best brain, my best resources, and my dollars, access technology at the right time with my ecosystem, startup, and providers, deploy at scale if I get something that can differentiate myself, and when I am getting neutralized by competitors, because it will happen sooner or later, start disengaging and using another sourcing model rather than thinking that everything is core, everything is not core in the R&D. And as a conclusion, if we tell you what we learn with our clients and what we're trying to execute with them, the key learning of all that would be the following. First, for any large client, you must define your core and declare your core. It looks like a simplistic statement. It is incredibly difficult to do because, of course, this is blah, blah, generic. When you go in one given industry, whether it is semicon, electronics, automotive, and so on, you need to break that down. And the core for Volkswagen is not the core of Tesla, is not the core of Volvo. This is different. My engineers are working very hard to help clients and understand what's core and then help them act adequately. 2, once you have defined your core, and by the way, statistically, I see 25% of my clients that can declare their core. They, of course, have an intuition, but the number of clients, large group that can declare their core, it's 25% of them. All of them, by the way, are working on that, but not yet done. 2, it's all about then focusing your best resources and the rare expertise that you have or you can access outside on this core and finding the technology accelerator. By the way, that's where startup and all the ecosystem play well. And for us, providers, where we used to provide thousands of engineers, have to change our mind because what clients are asking us in that domain, it's not to send thousands of engineers. It is just to send the tip-top expert and some IP so we could help them access technology and accelerate. And of course, engage in partnership and ecosystem to access technology. That's what I was saying. And on the not legacy but non-core, which we call context at Altran, the first learning is resist to the temptation to overstep. I'm not going to take example because that would not be really nice, but take a company like Alcatel, for instance. One of the reasons, if I snapshot what has happened, it's exactly that. They were stuck with bright resources on technology or generation that was down level, and they could not repurpose, restructure their brain, retrain them, and reallocate that on new generation network and so on. And that's the case in many industry. So resist to the temptation to overstep, disengage internal resources to repurpose and reallocate those resources on core, and then leverage competitive sourcing, because we now have a bunch of providers or externally, Altran is one of them, that can really help optimize the non-core activity, while clients are extracting resources from the non-core to refocus on the core, and so on and so forth. So that's the key learning. When we discuss, and that's what we have done, we went through a strategic cycle when I joined the group 3 years ago. The 6 tyrannies are, of course, more than important, but everybody, that's the way we articulate that 6 tyrannies, but most of you would describe the phenomenon with your own jargon. But this is the core context, vision and angle is very likely the main powerful lever to unlock the speed of development of clients and participate in this new world order and be a winner rather than a victim. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm eager to have any kind of discussion during the day. Thanks a lot.